On April 29, 2017, 27-year-old Polish beautician Magdalena Zuk died in Egypt. According to official Egyptian sources, she took her own life. However, there are several things that contradict this theory. But let's start at the beginning. Magda grew up in Bogotynia and moved out of her parents' house at the age of 17 to train as a beautician in Zgorzelec. At the age of 22, she opened her first beauty salon and studied dietetics, the technical term for the science of proper nutrition, to expand her knowledge. She was happily in a relationship. Her boyfriend's name was Marcus. It was probably not easy to juggle everything, and sharing was exhausting, but on the whole, her life was running smoothly. And because Magda hadn't been on vacation for a long time, she wanted to surprise her boyfriend with a trip to Egypt. So she did. Unfortunately, his passport had expired, and because she surprised him only a few hours before the flight, they didn't have time to apply for a new one. Marcus tried to sell the tickets on Facebook but didn't succeed. Magda was faced with the decision of either not flying at all and being left with the full cost, or embarking on a little adventure alone, as none of her friends had time on such short notice. She opted for the latter and flew out on the evening of April 25th, landing in Hurghada, known as the largest tourist center on the Red Sea, on April 26. Upon arriving at the hotel, the story begins to take a mysterious turn. Friends of hers report that they received messages from her that suggested Magda thought she was on vacation with them. Videos from the hotel show her shouting into her phone and gesticulating wildly, even though no one is talking to her. And there are recordings showing her lying in the open doorway of her hotel room, wearing only a bathrobe, doing nothing. She sent messages to her family asking them where they were and when they would come to her. These messages were written from the cell phone of an employee of the travel company. His name was Mahmoud K. Shortly afterwards, she called her sister on her own cell phone and told her that she thought someone had spiked her drink because she was feeling strange. Over the next few days, her condition worsened, so Marcus booked a return flight for April 29th so she could come home. At the same time, he told a friend of Magda's to fly to Egypt and pick her up. This fact alone shows how worried Marcus must have been and how bad her condition really was. But here is also a recording from the hotel so you can understand better. In my opinion, the situation where the employees hold the camera in her face feels very strange. If she really had a psychotic episode, then of course you can understand that it was difficult for the employees to capture this behavior on video in order to communicate it to the family. On the other hand, it must have been difficult for Magda as well. She probably wanted to be left alone and have some time to herself. Magdalena's family emphasizes that she had no mental health issues or anything similar before her stay in Egypt. On Friday, April 28th, Magda was admitted to the hospital but not treated. There are two different versions of why this did not happen. The first says that the hospital does not treat mental illness and that she was therefore turned away. The second version is that Magda did not want to be treated. To support the latter version, a doctor later said in a newspaper article that she did not even want to get out of the car, although there is video footage showing her voluntarily entering the hospital and being shown the way. She appears a little disoriented, but not really confused. The former could also simply be because she feels uncomfortable in a foreign country and has to visit a hospital where none of the staff speak her native language. After her visit to the hospital, she drove back to the hotel and the next day to the airport to catch the next flight home. However, she was not allowed to fly because, according to some statements, she was drunk, and according to other statements, she was behaving manically. It is difficult to say which is true. The only important thing to know is that she was not allowed to fly. She was therefore driven back to the hotel. However, she was not allowed to check in again, so she set out with the travel company and Mahmoud K to find another hotel. But no one wanted to take her in. To plan the next steps and keep Magda's boyfriend informed, Mahmoud called Marcus. The conversation lasted 13 minutes. Marcus recorded it with a second mobile device, and we have a copy of it. But so as not to go through everything, I have tried to compile the most important passages. I've also included video clips, and as you can see, Magda seems more than anxious and confused, but more on that in a moment.
Honey, tell me what happened. Honey, don't be afraid, please tell me. Don't be afraid, my angel. Tell me what's going on. Maciej will pick you up, okay? Do you understand? Are you listening to me? Do you remember Maciej, the one with the beard? He'll drive you. He'll be there tomorrow morning. Honey, tell me if something happened to you. Angel, tell me. Tell me what happened so I know what to do.
They have different tricks here. Bring me home, please.
What kind of tricks? What are they doing to you? Don't be afraid, tell me.
Please get me out of here.
I will, I promise you. Tell me what happened. Don't be afraid, tell me.
I can't tell you. I can't.
You have to tell me so I can call the embassy and someone can help you. Please tell me.
It won't change anything. Nothing. It's too far away. It won't change anything. It won't change anything. It won't change anything. I'm sorry.
What happened? Tell me, honey.
Get me out of here. I'm not going to get out of here.
Yes, you will come back to us. What happened? Tell me.
I can't talk. I'm sorry.
Honey, do you trust me?
Yes.
Then tell me what happened. I'll protect you. Tell me now, quickly.
The employee?
Yes, honey. Tell me, yes, tell me. What happened? Honey, please tell me.
I'll call you from my cell phone.
No, honey. Tell me now. I'll record the conversation with another cell phone. I need your statement as evidence. Please tell me. Look at me and tell me. Don't be afraid, please. Will you tell me? Look at me and tell me.
The first thing to note is that Magda is definitely not alone. As we know, Mahmoud is with her, but it almost seems as if there is someone else there too. She's also clearly afraid. We don't know who or what she's afraid of. What is strange is that she never holds the cell phone herself, but is filmed by someone else, probably Mahmoud. She has very striking gestures. She rocks forward and backward and often grabs her head with both hands. When she says M, she moves away from the camera. Is it perhaps a natural reflex because she is afraid of the person behind the camera? Or does M refer to the person on the other end of the phone? Shortly after mentioning the letter M, the conversation ends. Mahmoud comes and takes the phone. He says that there is no point in continuing the conversation and that he will convey the embassy's message in Egypt. The next day, she is taken back to the same hospital and refuses to be treated. There are video recordings of this as well. Some sources say that everyone in the picture is a hospital employee. However, the two men in the front of the picture look as if they do not belong there. It is difficult to assess the situation and the behavior of the people on site because we do not know whether Magda was manic, and if she was, how aggressive her behavior was. Nevertheless, I find the behavior of the man on the left in the foreground very strange. He's leaning against the wall right next to her. Shortly afterwards, he looks behind him, as if he's nervous about being caught doing something forbidden. It should be noted, however, that it could simply be that he heard a sudden noise behind him and turned around because of it. But if the first theory is correct, one could assume that something is not right here. This pose is an indication of that. Who would stand like that, and why? The only logical explanation in my eyes is that he wanted to cover Magda with his body. Shortly afterwards, Magda jumps up and attacks the man in the lumberjack shirt. Meanwhile, you can see that she is screaming and beside herself. Her anger and despair seem to be directed at him. He was also the one who most often tried to calm her down and who was closest to her. I noticed another small detail here that is worth mentioning. When she jumps up, she accidentally pulls the blinds on the window halfway down. Shortly afterwards, the nurse goes over and pulls them down completely. Why? Did she want to cover something up too? Or was it just a coincidence or habit? Because Magda couldn't be calmed down, she was taken to a room and tied to a bed with towels. A nurse was with her in the room and removed the towels so that Magda could go to the toilet. But when she was freed, she attacked the nurse and then threw herself from the second floor. She was taken to another hospital 300 kilometers away, but died of her injuries the next day. Investigators in Poland are treating the case as murder. Egyptian authorities, on the other hand, believe that Magda took her own life. It is noticeable that the Egyptian authorities are trying to squeeze everything into their narrative. They describe the video footage from the hospital that we have just seen as Magda attempting to jump out of the window. And she only fails because the people on the ground held her back. At least, that is the explanation given in an Egyptian newspaper article. But so that you can form your own opinion, let's take a look at the two suspects. The main clue is the letter M, which Magdalena mentions during her conversation with Marcus. That's why many speculate that Mahmoud had something to do with her death. Obviously, if he had really been involved, she would never have been able to mention his name on camera, since we know that he was there and probably even held the cell phone. Her gestures and statements suggest that she was very afraid. And probably not only because of the events of the last few days, but also because of the people who were with her. It is also strange that Magdalena uses Mahmoud's cell phone and not her own. It is as if he wanted to track her statements and messages, and her cell phone seemed to be working, because during her conversation with Marcus, she said that she would turn on her cell phone and call him back. In addition, there are sources, albeit not particularly reliable ones, that Mahmoud has a certain reputation in Egypt for drugging women. What supports these sources is that Mahmoud deleted all his social media profiles shortly after Magdalena's death. Of course, it could simply be that he received countless messages and threats due to the many speculations and theories of various videos and users and wanted to protect himself from them. However, if he really had drugged other women before, it could well be that Magdalena was another victim of his machinations and experienced drug-induced psychosis. This would partly explain her behavior, but questions about her death would still remain, such as whether she really jumped out of the window or whether she was killed. But even if she jumped out of the window, one has to ask whether it still amounts to murder. Magdalena's family supports this theory and strongly believes that Mahmoud is responsible for Magdalena's death. They go even further and believe that she was not only drugged, but that something even worse was done to her and that she was then killed, so that she could not testify against those responsible. However, the autopsy report does not support these speculations, but rather contradicts them, as there is no evidence to support the family's statements. It should be noted, however, that the autopsy report was never published in its entirety, only excerpts. The Egyptian police questioned Mahmoud but considered him innocent and let him go. Another but more unfounded theory is that Marcus, her boyfriend, had something to do with her behavior and suicide. Internet detectives speculate wildly without evidence, saying that Magdalena was extremely oppressed and controlled by Marcus. The only thing mentioned in this context is that Magdalena is said to have cried when Marcus took her to the airport, and she flew to Egypt alone. It is said that this is a sign that she did not actually want to fly, but was forced to do so by Marcus for whatever reason. Personally, however, I do not believe in this theory, because the evidence clearly contradicts it. Marcus tried to help her. Not only did he record the conversation with the intention of presenting it as evidence to the police or the embassy, but he even sent a friend of Magdalena's to Egypt to help her. In addition, he tried to sell the plane tickets on Facebook so that Magdalena would not have to fly alone, but they could travel together at a later date when he had a valid passport again. But of course, there is speculation from internet detectives who want to cast this situation in a different light. Namely, that there were even inquiries about the tickets, but Marcus rejected them so that he would be on the safe side and Magdalena would have to fly alone. However, The latter are just baseless theories and statements. Actually, this theory is based only on the letter M and would make the murder case even more mysterious in the public perception than it already is, and thus, of course, more entertaining. But this is not a fictional crime story. It is bitter and cruel reality, and I believe Marcus already has enough to deal with in the loss of his beloved girlfriend, whom he helped as much as he could. What can be assumed, however, is that Magdalena was given drugs, probably in a drink. It is difficult to determine who is responsible for this. However, it is unlikely that she would suddenly suffer from psychosis for no apparent reason without a history of mental illness. She even told her sister that she thought someone had put something in her drink. Of course, one must also consider the scenario that Magdalena voluntarily took drugs, and this had consequences she did not anticipate. However, I doubt that she took drugs on her first day of arrival in a foreign country. But aside from the theories about the cause of her mental state, the question remains whether she really killed herself. There is no real evidence that she was either thrown out of the window or killed by someone else. Of course, this again fuels various theories, as the autopsy report was never published in full. Unfortunately, apart from the above, there is no further information on the case. Personally, I believe that she was indeed given drugs by someone, probably Mahmoud, and that a psychotic episode caused her to jump out of the window. According to one statement, she was turned away by the hospital because they do not treat mental illness. If this is really true, it can be assumed that there were no specialists familiar with psychotic episodes, which is why they couldn't help, and the video recording seems so strange, even though they didn't actually have any bad intentions. And that brings us to the end of today's video. I have tried to compile all the important information and not leave anything out. If you notice any mistakes, or if I have forgotten any information, please let me know in the comments. A truly tragic case that would not have ended this way if her boyfriend's passport had not expired. What do you think happened to Magdalena? Did Mahmoud have something to do with it? Or was she the victim of a random crime and fell victim to the consequences in the form of drug-induced psychosis? If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and/or subscribe to support the channel. Thank you in advance, and thank you for watching. Good night, and see you soon.